writing barn today. I go there a lot. We're going to see a lecture. Tina Wexler, she's an agent. She represents a lot of great writers like Laura Ruby and Anne Urso, and she'll be talking about voice. Every time I go to a conference, and there's always someone who's going to ask the agents panel, what is the thing that attracts them the most to a manuscript? And most of the times agents will say it's the voice. The problem with voice is that it's a very abstract concept. It's hard to pinpoint what it is, but you recognize it when you see it. So I think this lecture is going to be quite interesting. I'm here with Tina Wexler, and she's a wonderful agent. I'm going to ask her a couple of questions related to the lecture that we just had. So the first thing I want to ask you is what makes a good voice?
I think that for me, a great voice is one that has a specific point of view, that there is a personality behind it, and that it is expressing a unique way of seeing the world that's true to the characters and true to the story that's being told. And true to the themes that are being explored, and that it really embodies all of those things.
Sometimes when authors get rejections, a really common reason is because the agent didn't connect enough with the voice, or because they didn't fall in love with the voice. So what does that mean?
Well, in some cases, it may mean that you need to do more research into who you're querying. There's certain voices that I do tend to gravitate towards, and so part of that, and this isn't a plug to get you to read my books or read the agent's books, but it is reading at least just the first chapter of some of the books that they've represented, because I think that you'll notice certain things that they do tend to gravitate towards. So part of it could be making your querying smarter and doing the research. But then part of it could mean that you just need to do work on that voice and figure out really who that narrator is and how you can strengthen it. And that might be through picking out better words and words that really express what you mean. It could be thinking about the imagery and the themes, the similes and the metaphors that you're using, and how they collectively underline the stories that you're trying to say. But it really could just mostly be thinking about who's really telling this story and how do they see this world? Because I think that that's where it really comes from. What is that personality of your narrator?
Okay, now I'm going to get a little bit more specific. First, I want to know about first person, and when you have more than one narrator, and how, and of course you have to make them sound different, but at the same time you need to find something that kind of glues all the novel together, and how you manage to juggle all of that.
Right. I think that dual narratives are, it's hard. It's sort of not only do you have to have a strong voice in one arena, you have to have a strong voice in another, and they have to be distinct, but they also have to feel like they were written by the same person while also taking the author sort of out of the equation. And I think that the way that happens is by the ways that they're sort of speaking to one another or exploring similar themes but coming at it in different ways. Or it may be that one uses the language of art and photography, and one uses the language of sports, but they're sort of using different language to express different thoughts, but that there's a certain similarity to that. Characters are sort of two sides of a coin. Not that they're that rigidly defined, but that there's sort of a tension between them, so that there's the weaving, but then there's the pulling between the two, and the way that they sort of braid together.
About third person limited, how you separate the narrator from your character and where you draw the line and all of that.
Well, in some cases, the line is very thin. In limited third, you can have a narrator who is very separate from that protagonist, right? And who is sort of in many ways their own character, even if you never meet them in the story. But sometimes it's in some ways sort of an arm's length version of who that main character, that protagonist is. And so the personality of the narrator will mirror the personality of the protagonist. So it depends on how you're envisioning that narrator.
But I really like how you touched on that you need to think about your narrator. Sometimes we don't think so much about the narrator as we do about our characters, and I think that thinking about your narrator, trying to establish that personality, that tone, really helps making what you want for the novel to come across.
Well, that's the voice, right? That's the voice of who's telling the story, which is an incredible thing, and you should know whose voice you're hearing.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. The longer you say it, it's like, yeah, obvious.
Good reminders. Well,
yeah.
which is why this is wonderful,
Yeah.
right? Of just being like, oh, right. That's
Yeah.
what I'm doing.
Yes.
You're not in the bubble of the words.
Exactly. So I'm here with Laurie. She's participating in the workshop. How is the workshop going for you?
The opportunity to dive into that novel and really break it apart with the advice of other authors as well as agents has been incredible.
It gets so deep into everybody's specific novel that they're working on, and it just breaks it down in a way that's so easily understandable. Hearing the way the speakers are explaining it, it puts it just so much more accessible to figure out how to go back and make each part a living part of your story.
How did the lecture yesterday and this lecture helped you with your novel, with your process?
Yesterday, Donna's lecture really talked about characterization, and she really said that you have to really know what your character's external motivation is and what their internal motivation is.
Thinking about my character as a whole person, and how those threads of her are woven throughout my novel has been eye-opening.
One of the things that she said that I was very impressed with in talking about character building, specifically for middle grade authors, to pay attention to the parents. Lots of times we try to just get the parents out of the way.
Yeah.
And even if they're out of the way, what's come before in terms of parenting your main character, like I don't think we think about how the upbringing, like for an example she used in Catherine Applegate's latest Crenshaw, which deals with the family, possibly becoming homeless, and they had been homeless before. The parents' socioeconomic status matters so much. Tina's lecture today on voice was wonderful. She broke it down into the who, what, where, when, and why, along with how.
Today, Tina showed us first pages, which we've all seen a million times, but the way she broke it down with the 5 W's and making sure that you tackle each one of those if you can on that first page, and how so little can really say so much.
People always talk about voice, and they just a lot of times say, oh, you'll know it when you read it.
Voice is kind of something that we think is indescribable. We know when we've stumbled onto it, but she gave us very kind of concrete ways to examine our writing.
We have specific things now that we can use tools as we're going back through and editing our manuscripts to apply to make sure that we strengthen the voice.
Heard it before and I've seen it before, but it, sometimes it just all coalesces and comes together.
What is coming in the writing barn?
And we've been doing a ton of local classes for Austinites, and we have a week-long event with Kristen Page Madonia, September of next year, and it ends right as the Teen Book Festival starts.
Okay.
So it'll be a week intensive working directly with her, such as we did last year with Nova Rensuma. Kristen's a popular YA writer whose mentor was Judy Blume, and so if you want to study with someone who's studied with Judy, which is as close as I might get, come see us. In October, we're very excited to have Libba Bray and Barry Goldblatt, author and agent, as well as husband and wife, are teaching together for the very first time. Those applications end in June because that's a very popular event.
Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like button here below. Please subscribe. Let me know what you want to see in future videos. But that's pretty much it for today. I hope you enjoyed this. I'll see you guys next time. Bye. Tools. Even though,
Sure, you're
you see it's not easy.